I quit Google, here's why. I know lately I've been creating a lot of game development type videos, but I wanted to give sort of like a little personal update with some recent things that have been kind of going on in my life. And in case you didn't know, in addition to doing YouTube, game dev, I've actually been working full-time for the last 2 years at Google. So if you're like a computer science student or someone that's early on in their tech career, you're probably sitting there and asking yourself,
oh my God, Michael, how could you possibly quit Google? Isn't that like the dream, the best company to work for? How could you ever quit?
I'm gonna go into that. So 2 years ago, I joined Google as a technical program manager, and before that, I was a technical program manager also at Microsoft. And specifically, I joined Google in the cloud division. And specifically within that, I joined what's called cloud capacity planning. Essentially, what cloud capacity planning is the team that's kind of responsible for making sure there's enough technical infrastructure in all of Google's data centers across the globe for all of the customers that use Google Cloud. So for example, if a large company, or even say maybe you or me, went to Google and said, hey, I want, 1,000 machines in Europe, my team would basically make sure that we have the proper components, the proper allocations for those machines to actually be there and start serving workloads. There's a lot of intricacies that come into play when you consider like the global supply chain and supply and demand and overall kind of inventory efficiency and everything. But that's kind of like the broad statement in like one sentence. Now, I want to first off say that my experience there and working at Google was just absolutely great. So I don't want it to come off as like this is a negative type video. And I mean, I think the reputation holds up. It has great benefits, great work-life balance. The people there were super great, super intelligent. You get like 3 free meals a day with chefs, there's massages, there's gyms, there's a lot of great benefits. So if everything is so great, then why did I leave? Well, if you told me when I was a broke college student that I would actually be leaving Google, I probably wouldn't have believed you. And it's a little bit hard to articulate what I'm trying to say, but I think it's best described as what does big tech offer you and what does big tech kind of not offer you. And by big tech, what I mean is my experience at Microsoft and Google, which are the only 2 companies I've worked at since I graduated from college. So big tech for me, it taught me a lot about how to build and scale software, how to operate in like a big corporate environment, a lot of good practices when developing software and just like products in general and working on teams and collaboration. It also gave me a lot of stability coming out of college. Crucially, it also allowed me to pay back my student loans much quicker than I probably would have otherwise, which was like a massive weight sitting on my shoulders when I was graduating. So if I'm sort of sitting here and reflecting, I think Google and big tech is great for when you're coming out of college because again, it gives you all of that stability. It gives you a pretty good work-life balance, really great compensation for that work-life balance, good benefits. It teaches you a lot about, again, how you interact in like a large corporate environment, which is useful. And again, how some of the biggest companies in the world are able to build and scale successful products. So there's all of these benefits, but what are some of the downsides, at least from what I've noticed being 4 years in the industry? One major one is bureaucracy and office politics. Many of these big tech companies have tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of employees, which obviously requires more bureaucracy, so it makes sense. But this ultimately means, and again, this is just speaking from my experience, that in order to release something or update something, there's a lot of kind of hoops to jump through and a lot of approvals you're gonna need to get, which again, makes sense. I'm not saying it doesn't make sense, because if you're thinking about it, if you're Google or Facebook and you have billions of users, you don't want some random, college student who just graduated rolling out a change that takes down Gmail or Facebook or something. But this inevitably results in a lot of review meetings, a lot of back and forths between different teams with, different goals, constantly pinging people to review certain docs or approve certain tests. All of that combined with office politics, like if one director said one thing and another director said another thing, you start to just feel kind of like a cog in a much bigger machine. And I want to stress that you are a very well compensated and treated cog at that. And this could totally be team dependent, but that's from time to time what I felt like. At least the level that I was at, you don't really have too much impact, or at least it doesn't feel that way. Again, It makes sense. All of this does make sense. Would you trust a new college graduate or only someone with only like a year of experience to do like really, groundbreaking changes? Probably not. So there's all of that. And if you're in the kind of tech industry, you've probably heard the term golden handcuffs. So golden handcuffs is generally defined as just incentives to ensure that employees kind of don't quit, which is kind of along the lines of everything I described earlier: the chefs, the massages, the gyms, good work-life balance, good salary, equity, stuff like that. So all of this, and why would you quit? For me, I think I started to feel kind of like a sense of complacency a little bit. Working at big tech, it's not really like the show Silicon Valley, or it's not like the movie The Social Network. Every day you walk into an office, granted it's a nice office, you have meetings, you sit down at your desk, you get lunch, you go home. That's, day in, day out, that's pretty much what you do. So over time, I felt like I wanted more impact, personal impact, and more like executive decision making, or maybe just kind of a smaller environment. And that's when I started to look at different opportunities. Honestly, if you haven't seen the show Silicon Valley, I highly suggest it because it does such a good job of displaying kind of the tech industry, even to current day. I think it was made in like 2012 or 2014 or something. But all of the episodes are still like so accurate. And ultimately, it kind of nails this feeling that I'm trying to describe.
Oh, no.
Hey, double macchiato for me, dude.
Yeah. Hey, Rico, you been working out?
No, I have not. I don't have time to, even if I wanted to. I'm too busy working on my website. I don't want to end up being a Hulu lifer, working here forever.
Yeah, working for the most innovative company in the world with top pay and vested stock options. I can totally see why you wouldn't want that.
I guess what I'm getting at is that it's less of what Google did wrong and more of what I wanted going into the future. Like what I wanted for my career and what I want for a company and the future and everything. Because for all of those quote downsides I mentioned earlier, they all make sense for a company of that scale. But after I paid off my student debt and I was on a couple different teams, different companies, I think my future, or the future that I wanted, started to become a little bit clearer, or at least what I wanted to explore next became clearer. So after all of this, would I recommend working at big tech? I mean, I definitely would, depending on the person that's asking. I mean, out of college, it's very hard to beat because you get, again, great benefits, you learn great skills, you learn the corporate environment, good work-life balance, and also you develop a lot of generally good habits. And you have all of that with a pretty decent level of stability. So I'm very glad after college that I did join big tech for all of the reasons I just said. And I think if you're like me and you experience that big tech environment, you might understand kind of what I'm trying to describe in this video. And you'll learn what you like about that environment and what you don't like, and then maybe where you want to pivot. So I figured now is probably a good time if I'm gonna take that jump, that risk, leave that stability of big tech, try something different. I figured now is probably a good time. I'm 26 years old. I don't have a partner, a wife, kids. I don't really own too many things. I have some savings, some things invested. So if there was ever a time I was going to take a risk with my career and leave that stability of big tech, I think now is probably the best time for that. So what's next for me? Well, I'll probably make another video diving a little bit deeper into that area, but you can probably guess from what I've mentioned that it's going to be a smaller environment. So that's kind of everything. I don't know if I really articulated kind of what I was feeling. It was just this general sense of, wanting something new to explore, smaller environment, greater impact, all of these kind of different abstract thoughts. But hopefully you enjoyed the video. And if you're new, I've been working on this little indie game called Castlemancer that's on Steam. You should definitely go wishlist it right now because it definitely helps me out. We do a bad British accent at the end of every video. That's all from me. Hopefully I see you in another one. Bye-bye.